Hi, I'm Stephanie J. Block.
And I'm Mary Lee Fairbanks. Welcome to Stages Podcast,
where we're bringing creation and connection to center stage.
How are you?
Hi, Stephen.
Okay, are Stephen and I both wearing the same?
Yes, you are.
You're wearing the same
both
color.
In green.
Yes. It's like, what are the odds?
You two are psychically tied together.
Tied together at the wardrobe.
We're psychic friends, as Dionne Warwick would have said.
Yeah, right.
So today we have two guests on the show. They are an acclaimed theatrical writing team. They've won 2 Tony Awards, 2 Drama Desk Awards, 2 Olivier Awards, and they've been nominated for 4 Grammy Awards, 2 Academy Awards. They received the Oscar Hammerstein Lifetime Achievement Award, and in 2015 were inducted into the Theater Hall of Fame. This partnership has lasted almost 40 years. I had the incredible good fortune to work with them in Ragtime, a show that I consider to be one of the greatest and most complex shows ever written. We are happy to have them here with us today, so please welcome to our podcast, Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens.
Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens to stage, please. Stephen and Lynn to stage.
Thank you for having us. We're really excited, and we were thrilled to get the invitation from you guys. So,
you always were so humble and open and kind to everyone. And I wanted to tell this story, Stephen, about you. And I doubt you'll remember it, but it was a really touching moment for me in the New York theater scene, because sometimes, the industry can be really harsh. And then in the sea of that harshness, it's like the two of you are this gentle presence in the industry.
That's
and
kind.
When I went in and I auditioned for Ragtime, it was at, some final callback. And you know how they are. There's, 25 people behind the table and they're all staring at you. And of course you're nervous. And Stephen, you were standing up and leaning against the wall. And I was doing the Mother song. And it was the part of the song where, where the women are singing in the background, right? And so it's hard to hear when you come in without that background. And very quietly in the back of the room, you just slowly raised your hand and then you cued me. And I was like, I love him, because I could tell in that moment you wanted me to succeed and you didn't even know who I was. And that moment just stayed with me for years. I thought it was just beautiful.
Wonderful. I probably saw a little bit of fear go from, across your eyes. And
you probably did.
And here you go. The truth of the matter is everybody wants everybody to do their best in an audition. There's a lot of this misconception of like us and them. And I think all the creators want everybody to be amazing. So I in the past, I've jumped at the piano if the audition pianist is mangling the song, and I know that the actor can do it, but you can't tell, So whatever it takes to make you guys look your best. That's part of the job.
Can you see the looks on our face when we go a little awry? You can absolutely, no matter how we smile through it or continue to perform, you can see a shift in either our face or our body, right?
I think so. Don't you, Lynn? Yeah, totally.
I not only think so, but I know so. I mean, what I always feel when an actor walks into a room to audition, I am always a little, not on edge, but just rooting for them so hard.
That's
and
right.
trying to keep my smile going and trying to hello and welcoming them, because I couldn't do what you guys do for $1 million trillion. It is a miracle that anybody can get up in the middle of an empty room, stand on a spot, and sing their hearts out and act and focus over our heads to some unknown presence that becomes so real. And it's just a miraculous talent that actors have that I am in awe of, since I am entirely lack it, So I just, anyway, we are always rooting for the actor, and hoping to give them good energy.
You can tell.
You have to be exhausted then by the end of a casting session, because you are invested and you are empathetic and you're feeling all of these different energies and emotions, whether they're the high highs or the disappointments come in and out of that room. You've got to be pooped.
It's I think, in a weird way. It does. You do expend energy for sure.
You do. You certainly do. And also at recording sessions, you think, you're just sitting in a chair listening to playback. But the truth of the matter is to listen really closely and really focus. That's sort of exhausting. But the truth of the matter is if you find your actor who's ultimately going to be your collaborator at the end of the day at an audition session, then it energizes you because you're so looking forward to working with this person. You're looking forward to the future.
Now, Stephen, I saw your face when Mary Lee said 40 years together.
I know, right?
What does that mean to you? I know the word marriage is used often when it's a lyricist and a composer, or when you've been collaborating and agree to walk together in this life for that long. How do you two inspire each other? How do you guys communicate that allows and affords for 40 years working together?
That's a multi-part question. I mean, for me, I just feel so grateful that Lynn and I met one another when we did. I came to New York in the fall of '82, and by the spring of '83, we were writing together, which is something of a miracle. And it's that big question of, is it like luck? Is it dumb luck? Is it being in the right time at the right place? Is it destiny? I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all of those things, but I feel grateful. And I also think that as you go together in a partnership, be it a marriage or a creative partnership, you're always developing as individuals as well as the team. So I think that that's really good, just to be sensitive to that aspect. Lynn's maybe wanting to do a certain kind of show and I'm scared of it, which has happened in the past. And it could take me a while to warm up to that. But just the idea of there's more where that came from, because being Irish Catholic, I'm always expecting like the horrible drunk relation to walk into the room and take away the happiness away.
Drop.
Yes, that's right. And there's something about just the idea that you can find that there's more where that comes from, and that you can continue, and that, you can grow and develop and have adventures and all of that. It's so surprising and wonderful. And I just feel grateful. I don't take a single day for granted. I don't.
Yeah. Like he said, I have nothing to add. He's absolutely, I really don't. We're very lucky to, I think, have found one another. And also when you find the right collaborator or husband or wife or, partner, you kind of know it, and you want to nurture that relationship. And if you're lucky, they do too. We have fights. I mean, we're sort of like a home partnership. We have fights. We get mad at one another. We annoy the hell out of one another. And then, other times, I mean, like after this pandemic, when I first got together with Stephen, it was so thrilling because I had
likewise
thrilling. We hadn't seen each other for over a year, where normally we're in the room together pretty much at least 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, all the time working. And suddenly it was kind of all long distancey and weird, and it was stressful, and all of the things that we all went through, just to feel like the normalcy of that relationship was coming back again was thrilling. It really was. And it's not just the work, it's just a friend, that you can. Yeah. And we've had adventures, we've had travels, we've gotten lost together. We've been through bankruptcies and all sorts of adventures in show business together, so that's quite a background.
You're each other's rocks.
Yes. And we
And it's interesting when we met one another, and this is like way back in the day, almost 40 years ago, when we did that, we wrote in completely different ways. I was like right out of the conservatory, and I thought I'm going to feel profound thoughts, and I'm going to be a serious writer, and I only wore black, and I had a beard, and I would just sequester myself like a monk, in a room, and I would just write down the scores, and it would be like, I was doing, copying Bibles or something. Whereas Lynn was much more of an improv kind of gal, and she would just be on her feet all the time in the room saying, oh, let's try this, let's try that, and throwing ideas around. And it was at first threatening to me. She denies this, but I remember our first session together, she said, okay, make something up. And I realized later that I had never made something up in front of another human being. I would only like hide away and make something up on my own in case, frankly, if it was terrible, terrible. I would be the only one to know that, and I would hide it. And in those early days, I would have, I don't want to say writer's block. Knock wood, I don't believe I've ever had that, but it would be hard for me to get beyond like measure 16, because I would know if I made this choice, the piece would go to the left and become one thing. And if I made a different choice, it would go to the right and become a completely other thing. And I would freeze rather than make a choice. And Lynn taught me, like, just make a choice. And if it's not the right choice, you're going to find out soon enough. And then you circle back, and then, you try the other way. And we often write many, many drafts of songs. Most of the time they just don't appear. We'll do a draft and then you find something out about it, and then bit by bit it reveals itself. But a lot of the artistry of writing for the theater is the rewriting.
So if you're both yin and yang, in 1982, were you paired together in like a workshop of some kind, or you actually chose one another? How did that relationship even begin?
It's a wonderful story. We were both in this BMI musical theater workshop. Up until that point, I'll just backtrack very quickly. My background was in jingles, commercial music, children's television, those kinds of things. And I had made a Schoolhouse Rock. I did all this stuff before I thought about musical theater. So I'd had a number of careers, and they were all based on me composing with some banging on the piano by ear, playing on the guitar, 5 chords. And I would sing melodies over my plunk, plunk, plunk music. And I'm a good melodist and I have a good ear. So I somehow managed to make a career as a total dilettante, in all these different fields. I just didn't know what I was doing, but I was a composer. So I joined the BMI musical theater workshop. And they pair you up there, and they say, for the first assignment, you two will work together. And the second assignment, you two will work together in trying to develop teams and trying to develop collaborations. But I never got paired with Stephen ever in that first year, because he was writing his own lyrics. Self-contained, black-bearded young man who never looked anybody in the eye. He was so shy, and he'd sit in a corner. And, when it was his time to present a song, he'd go up and he'd play and he'd sing a song, and the lyrics were beautiful. And I would sit there going, he is so talented. But I never even said hello. He would just zip out of the room at the end. He'd just disappear. So I was working with other people, very talented. And at the very, very end of that first year, I was standing out in front of the building, and Stephen Flaherty, we're chatting with some people. Stephen Flaherty went scurrying up the street, scurrying toward 8th Avenue. And he stopped maybe 150 or 200 feet away, and he turned around and he went, "Hey, Lynn, do you want to do the last assignment?" And it was the last of the year. "Do you want to write a song?" And I was so stunned that he could talk. I was like, "Well, okay, sure." And so we sort of made a date on the sidewalk, then he scurried away, and we got together, and I had written a lyric for the last assignment, which was pretty bad.
Say what the assignment was, because this was sort of interesting.
Well, the assignment was 2 people singing together in different places, right? So it's a traditional, kind of a song where 2 people are singing the same song, but they can't see each other. In SEUSSICAL, it's kind of like when Horton and JoJo are singing Alone in the Universe. That's
right.
A classic example of that kind of song. So I wrote a lyric about, and this is how long ago this was, 2 people placing personal ads in the Village Voice. Okay. This collaboration this was before anything, before Hinge and
before anyone was swiping left.
No,
that's right.
So I handed him this lyric, and he put it very calmly on the piano, and he sat down and he put his fingers down, and he just sort of did this little musical thing looking at the lyrics. And I thought, there it is. This is it. I just knew it. I said, this is what I've been looking for, because he was a lyricist and I was a semi-composer, and we both had something to offer one another. So I offered him, I think, the spontaneity of a work process where we can make mistakes and we can bang on the keys, and my whole sort of background, sort of the overall what we're aiming for. And Stephen is so detailed and so specific about every note and every chord from his background in composition. So I think that's how we got together, and why I think we fuel one another's creative process, because I can hear things and say, I don't know what that note is, but it's just not right, or it should go up, and I don't know, and he can point at a lyric and say, not your best work right there. because he knows.
That personal ad
Yes.
really worked for the both of you.
I know. And the weird thing is Lynn found the original manuscript, which was ink on lined music paper. She found it recently. And there was some quotes in it that were like oddly prescient. Somebody trying to find the other person and are you out there? And it was strange. The song itself is not great. Let's just put that out there. But the process of writing the song was great.
It did its job. It brought you two together.
That's right.
Yeah. And we said, oh, let's do another one. Oh, let's do, and then you write a song, you write another song, and then eventually you write a show. And just the idea that you could continue. I think at that period of time, I was trying to put everything that I knew about music and life into every measure. And that, that's just too much. And I realized, this won't really fit well with this particular show. And Lynn would say, oh, well, we'll do a project down the road about that, where you can show that aspect of who you are musically. And just the idea that there would be a future. This is like, shows you like my dark Irish Catholic roots, just the idea that there could be a healthy continuity of things, that was like, wow, there can? Okay, sign me up for that.
What possessed you on that particular day, such a shy person who was probably heading back to his room to write privately? Why did you do it? What took over you?
I think that I admired what Lynn was doing for a very long time. And she could do a complex emotion and she could distill it into 5 words, where it would take me probably 23. If truth be told, I thought music came to me very easily. It always has. I've been playing piano and creating things since I was like a kid, since I was 7, but words, I loved playing with them, but I was beginning to feel like I was in some sort of a rut. And, if you're 21, 22, feeling you're in a rut, you're just starting out. And I just thought maybe I should try to collaborate. I came from the Midwest and there was nobody else that was interested in this. So in a weird way, I would do book music and lyrics by default because there weren't other people that were interested in that. It's the old thing where you're waiting till like the absolute last moment to ask somebody to a dance or a date or whatever. And I realized that I had like passed her and I was going up the street to the end of the block. And it's a thing where the hairs on the back of your neck go like this. And that little voice whispers in your ear, like, turn around. And you either do or you don't. And if you don't, a potential amazing thing could pass you by. And you
always wonder. I mean, I have those moments where I ignored that. And I was like, I wonder what would have been if I had not ignored that. If I had the courage to listen to the little whisper, and just do it.
And, and we're all afraid to varying degrees of most things, and I just thought, turn around, schmuck, raise your voice, and I did, and here we are.
And then something great happened, and then the Irish Catholic in you was going, oh God, I'm going to be smited for something along the way.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You can't enjoy yourself too much,
Don't be too happy.
That's right.
What I think is so interesting is that he was writing musicals from the time he was a little kid. I mean, he loved theater from day one and always knew that was what he was going to do. And I didn't know it until I was about, 34, 35 or something. Before that, I rarely went to the theater. We did go. I went once I met my husband, we started to go, but I never went in school. I think I saw one Broadway show, Fiddler on the Roof, when I was in college, but that was the first and only show I had ever seen. So in our collaboration, what I think is really interesting to me anyway, is that I learned how to write theater with Stephen Flaherty. I didn't know what I was doing. He really knew the form, and I'm a fast learner, but I didn't know a thing when we first met. I really, really didn't know what I was doing. Now I think I know what I'm doing, but I think I credit a lot of that to those early days with Stephen. And before that, my mother, because she taught me to love books and tell stories and love singing and dancing. And
was she a writer?
She's 95 and she's still a writer. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing.
And she's an unbelievable woman. She really is. But she's written for her whole life and a big, huge reader.
It's really sad because kids aren't growing up reading anymore. Everything's so fast paced and they're always on computers and games that they don't find the comfort in books that I think we all found in our generation. And books taught me to dream. Oh, there's more world out there I didn't even know existed. And kids they're just not into it. Kind of sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad. I mean, oh my gosh, books are like my most treasured possession.
Stephen, I was going to ask if you were an only child, but you're Irish Catholic. So there's no way you're an only child. So you have siblings. Lynn, do you have siblings as well?
I do. I was the only child for 7 years. I have two brothers. My next youngest brother is 7 years younger than I am. And then my youngest brother is a year younger than him. So, there's a little bit of distance between me and the guys. And I think I had the benefit of the dotage, that a mother gives to an only child before, all the chaos of young boys. So, in that sense, I was very coddled and, sung to and, given dance lessons and, all of that sort of thing. When I was little, I really did have that kind of loving, very focused rearing, I think.
It's interesting. My parents came later to having a family than like most of their relatives, because for whatever reason, they were having trouble, conceiving. So the story goes that they pretty much resigned themselves to that and accepted that. And then instantly my mother got pregnant with my older brother. And then like a year and a month later, what they call Irish twins, I was there was me. And so I was number 2. And then she paused a year. And then my younger brother came. And then my sister a year later. So within 5 years, there were 4 of us. We had to move to a larger house. And I was lucky because this past week, I had not seen my mother and I had not seen my family since pre-COVID. And I was able to go and hang out with them for a week in that house that we moved to in the 60s that, where I was 4, and the fact that we were able to be there as a family in that house after this crazy year, it was beautiful. I should point out that my younger brother actually is so musical. He plays 9 instruments.
Oh, wow.
And he just does that for fun. That's his idea of fun. He's a research chemist and he studied the brass instruments. So he played tuba and trumpet and trombone. And then he just taught himself like the banjo, the electric bass, the upright bass, all these other instruments. And he actually knows more about music than I do. So whenever I was working on Ragtime and I was feeling very vulnerable about the Lower East Side people, because everything I was coming up with sounded like, they had done it before in Fiddler and done it better. And I said, I'm doing really well with the Harlem folk. I'm doing fine with the New Rochelle folk, with the other people in the show, but I'm having trouble with this group of people. And he made a listening list of all his favorite klezmer and Eastern European music. And the fact that he would even just know that. I love research. I love listening to different kinds of music, but he is like the deep dive guy.
Wow, what a resource to have.
Yeah.
When you look at your musical theater canon, are there characters that resonate with you more than others? Or have you ever written a part that sort of emulates either Lynn or Stephen?
In a way, I think every character is us a little bit. I'm speaking for myself, but it's only recently that I've really begun to think, I could really write something for this character that would be something that Lynn Ahrens wants to say. Because I'm usually so immersed in the actual character and in their life and in who they are and what their world is and what their story is that we're trying to tell. And usually by the end of it, there's something important, hopefully, in the show that I've been able to put forth into the world. But it's only recently that I've been thinking about specific characters and how they might reflect me. And, I've never really, I'm always hiding in the back darkness somewhere, trying to put wonderful stories on stage that actually move an audience and make them feel something. But specifically, I think there's probably a whole lot of me in Mother in Ragtime, because I've been through that arc of being a very, traditional girl, just sort of brought up in a good girl and nice person. I've sort of identified with Wendy Wasserstein, who was always complaining how nice she was. Mm-hmm. And and I think as time has gone by, I've stepped over into the alto phase of my life. I'm not such
So you're more of is it Rita from Lucky Stiff? Is that
very more? I have a lot of Rita in me.
I love her. She's one of my favorites of all your characters.
And I actually liked, I kind of love the character of Countess Milevsky-Malevich in Anastasia. And in fact, She's named after the woman we bought our house from. So the house I'm sitting in right now was owned by an old lady who was married to a white Russian whose name was Count Malevsky-Malevich. And I took her name and put it in the show because I just love that character.
That's fantastic.
Stephen, any connections to a particular character?
Yeah. Well, I think Lynn said it really, really well, that to write any character and to give them voice, and especially to give them musical voice, which is sort of the sound of what their emotions are, what they're feeling. I think you have to relate to the character, or you have to find things in your own life that are absolutely applicable. And even writing Once on This Island, and obviously I'm not Timoon, I'm just not. But at the same time, as that developing writing was happening, I was a caregiver for a friend, a dear, dear friend of mine, who was going through a health crisis. And this was during, the AIDS epidemic. And to be loving somebody and trying to keep the god of death at bay, and trying to overcome that through faith or belief or whatever you want to call it. All of a sudden, those scenes with Papa Gay jumping through a window, which I thought, how do I write that? Because I was naive and had not experienced that. All of a sudden, it's like life gave that to me on a platter, big time. And it was a very good time and a very difficult time, and a way that I was able to learn a lot about myself and then take what I had learned and put it into a useful form, which was the score.
Yeah, a channel for all that pain and sadness too.
Channel. And I felt grateful that I had that, because a lot of people don't. They're just sitting with, the unknown and the difficult. And so even though my background is not Timoon's, my emotional life, especially at that time, was. And another character that I dearly love is Alfie Byrne in Man of No Importance.
Man of No Importance. I was going to say, with the Irish background, there's got to be some characters in there.
Yeah, and there was a scene that's at the top of Act 2 that was, it's a small scene, but it was maybe one of my favorite scenes to write. And it was about Alfie Byrne in confession. And, and here, and writing this show was Terrence McNally, another Irishman, and myself. And Lynn said, I'm the lone Jew here. I don't understand what this confession is. And I said, well, there are so many emotions, at least for me, that you feel during confession. And there's shame, there's hiding, there's fear, there's anger, there's humor. And it took us a couple of drafts to do it. And, luckily we were working with Joe Mantello, also a Catholic, so he knew he knew all these like conflicting emotions that happen in a confessional booth, and I just wanted to really try to nail that as best I could, because I'd been living with it so long, and so that was a favorite scene and a favorite character to write for.
I went to high school in Neptune, New Jersey, and it was a very big Catholic school, and all the boys I dated, had names like Fabio Battaglia.
Yes.
Jimmy Frocchia and stuff.
Those
like
are my kind of people, Liz,
So
right there. All right.
I was very comfortable with all these Catholic boys on A Man of No Importance, but I really did have to find out what happened in that confessional, because I didn't know. And what I wanted to say was, I think as a writer of musical theater, you have to be so empathetic, because you really have to become the characters. You have to go inside their psyches and figure out who they are and how you can express them. And we have all of these ancient cassette tapes that we have acted out characters on them, and walked around the living room, and, and I'll be reading Sarah and Cole House and this one and doing all the voices. It's so embarrassing when I think about it. And they will be released when we die. Not before.
Come on. Can we have one small snippet to play on the show? Come on, Lynn, just a little piece.
I keep going back to Joe Mantello, and I can just imagine Joe Mantello sitting there in the confessional saying, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 42 years since my last confession." Well, that man's not been in a confessional for a long time.
That was kind of, my dad was like the North End guy, and he used to say, "I don't go to confession because I ain't getting out of there if I go in. And they let me out."
That's right. That's right.
So let's go back to Terrence McNally a little. You just were talking about him. Talk about your relationship with him.
I miss him every day.
I'm sure you do.
I miss him every day. And I can't believe I'm even saying that, because I don't miss my father every day, but I miss Terrence every day. because he was just such an amazing and special presence. But he and I fought like cats and dogs.
It did.
We really did. And people were always interceding because they thought the project would collapse because we were having fight, like, no, Terrence, I'm not, and I would have to always be saying, can you please not use this word in the introduction to the song because I'm using it in the song lyric and I wrote the lyric first. And, it was sort of like we'd have big fights because we were both, and I still am, such perfectionists. But I think under that, what a writer he was. I mean, he could just write a monologue for a character and I would look at it and go, well, there's the song. And I would steal all of his work to put in song lyrics because it was so lyrical to begin with and so poetic. And he was unbelievably generous about that and loved it. He loved hearing what we would do with his stuff. It was a very exciting collaboration. We did 3 shows with him. And then I don't know if it was exactly the last thing that he ever wrote, but very much toward the end, we did a concert version of Ragtime, and he rewrote certain things and we rejiggered certain things so that it could literally be done at microphones, with beautiful segues of narrative in between the scenes, to hold it together. And it was certainly our last collaboration. I think he probably was working on a play because he always was. The very sad thing, I guess, that I still think about was we were down in Florida, in Sarasota, doing a show at the Oslo Rep when the pandemic hit. And Terrence was scheduled to come down there. He and his husband have a condo. So we were going to get together and he was going to come to opening. And I very much wanted him to see a preview and give notes and, all of that stuff. And when we were basically shut down, we all left Florida and I emailed him. I still have the email. And I said, Terrence, don't come down, don't travel. But their plans were in place and they came down and he died the following week. So we miss him a lot. Pretty much every day I do think about him when I'm writing, because I'm trying to write with music. It's hard for me because usually I'm setting music and I can't hear any other music except Stephen's music. But right now I'm not even going to tell Stephen Flaherty what I'm working on at the moment. But
I'm thinking, wait a second, this is news. This is like, I've not heard this.
I'm not telling you just yet, but I'm working on a little something to show you, but I'm trying to put music in my ears just because Terrence did that.
She's got to keep you excited. There have to be secrets after 40 years.
This is how you keep the marriage alive.
I remember that Terrence himself said that he felt too much on music in his plays. When you think of Master Class and, Lisbon Traviata and, they had big sections of music. And I remember him saying for Perfect Ganesh, which is his play of 2 middle-aged women on a pilgrimage to India, he said in scene 1, he had them both forget to bring their Walkman so they would have no music. And he said that was his way of preventing himself from in a later scene using music, which at that point he felt like it was being a crutch. And I think that's so interesting whenever you begin writing to give yourself limitations, because I firmly believe, as Stravinsky said, creativity only comes by limitation. If you have everything available at every given moment, then it's hard to focus in and focus down. So
too many choices.
That's right. But Terrence was so supportive of us, not only as writers, but as people. And he would always ask, how are you doing? As opposed to, how is the show that you're working on doing? And
that's great.
It meant the world, because it's, the shows are great and the process is fantastic. And the people that we meet, it's just incredible, but it's not the full picture of what your life is, and I think that he was always aware of that in his own life and in seeing other people. And he was always about the context of things. I used to have people fairly recently asking me, so what are you working on? You barely opened a show, or you're in the process of birthing a show. And it's like, so what are you working on? And I realized what I was working on was trying to find a larger frame. It wasn't about this project or that. It was about like taking a couple steps back and looking at the whole picture of, what we're doing and, why we're writing and what it means to us. And it's never about any one project, because things rise and fall and, and then they go away and then you're into the next thing. But it's about trying to find that larger frame, the context that, that's what your life is.
I hear that in your music, both of you. I hear the grand and the small And I think that larger scope is apparent in all of your scores.
It is the specifics of life, the specifics of what somebody's wearing and what somebody, does mother have a whalebone corset on that constricts her? Or, does Alfie Byrne in Streets of Dublin, there's there are references to specific people who lived in Dublin in 1964 and worked there. And I use their names. And I feel like it is the specifics of life that inevitably are universal. Because we all have different specifics. But if you start with, you wear a totally different kind of clothing, a different religion, different place, different everything. But if you can be specific about those things, we're all human underneath those various specifics. And I'm very interested in that, in the, like the little details that bring reality to characters, but also that somehow let the characters be more united as human beings.
The thing that everybody assumes is being a composer, that you're in the driver's seat all the time, that you know where you're going. It's going to be 2 left turns and a right, and then you circle around. And the truth of the matter is you don't. If you can really be in the moment with the character and you're riding that wave, then all of a sudden there will be a surprise left turn that you couldn't yourself see coming. And you're like, wow, that's and I really think if I surprise myself whenever I'm trying to pull the music out, then chances are that you surprise the listener, you surprise
that you're on the right track.
Yeah. Like I remember working on Goodbye My Love and What of the People, which is this totally different idea. And all of this other kind of music poured out of the middle of this song. And I couldn't see it coming. But
what's interesting is even in that example, you can feel her constriction in that whalebone corset just for what you guys were writing in that moment. It's really, it is beautiful. It's genius. It's brilliant.
Do you find more of those surprises when you're on your feet acting the stuff out, or does it reveal itself to you at the piano?
It's both.
That's such a great That's a great question. I find that it depends on what the kind of score is. I know that for Once on This Island, whenever I would be at the piano, somehow it would come out as more European or more composed. And it was really about movement and rhythm and the body. And I just realized somewhat early on that I should not be writing that score at the piano. So I would literally just get out and I'd be walking down the streets and I'd be trying to feel the rhythm and trying to feel the beat in my body and in walking. I found a lot of the melodies and the grooves away from that piano. And the piano sometimes can be your nemesis, because if you're sitting in front of a piano, that means like, I am here to write. And the piano can just go like this and fold its arms and, give you attitude.
Dare ya. Yeah.
I dare you. Yeah. And you have to find these ways to sort of fool that. Like you got to come into the side door, Some scores are meant to be written at the piano and I feel them at the piano, but sometimes it's great to get away from that piano and great to get away from what you know and what you feel, because, there are certain notes that fit well under my fingers. Chances are they're notes that I've used before.
The habits. Yeah.
The habits, what you're used to.
I was just going to add that, there are many times when we're writing a song and, sometimes the music comes first and sometimes the lyrics come first. And, I personally always like to get a little bit of music first because it just helps me. But we'll be sitting there and almost improvising back and forth. And suddenly we both start to cry because something has surprised us. And it's like you don't expect it. You're going, and this and this, and this, and you go, what the heck? And it's wonderful when that happens. It's quite wonderful. And that's when you know that if it touches you and you're surprised by it, everybody will be.
Now it's time. The 5 questions.
If you were to speak to your 20-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Never read reviews. Keep going. Do what you do with joy. Put it out there and move on to the next thing that gives you joy. And do not let anybody stop you.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Excellent.
Stephen, if you could have any ability that you do not possess, what would it be?
The ability to fly.
Oh, good one.
I would like to be a superhero and just sort of hover over Manhattan with my cape. And I often do in my dreams. Then I wake up.
Black cape, black beard, that kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe with show logos. I don't know. Maybe.
Lynn, do you have any good luck charm or like a ritual or superstition that you use or have used in the past?
Let's see. Well, I have certain little talismans that I think, sort of are inspiring and bring me luck. And one of my favorite ones, believe it or not, is a picture of Michelle Paulk's son when he was still in the crib wearing a cat in the hat. And it's on my bulletin board and has been since the experience that was SEUSSICAL. And it lets me know that out of difficulty comes beauty, because she was pregnant when we were rehearsing that show and gave birth to Jack. And, we have this, I just love this picture and it just means a lot to me. So I think it's something that I think about. I can see it totally in my head anytime. It's right on my bulletin board and on my desk. And I think it just, gives me a little jolt of hopefulness every now and then when I need it.
Okay, Stephen, tell us something about yourself that most people don't know.
Okay. I also paint. I'm also a visual artist. And I was lucky that I got both of those things from my father. He has an amazing set of ears, and he has an amazing eye. He painted his whole life. He played jazz trumpet. After our family dinners, he'd go up to the attic and play Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, which sort of sent a real mixed message to the family. But he was very gentle. He was very kind. And he would always say, listen to what that clarinet's doing right there in that part, that phrase. Or, ooh, look at that. That's not blue. That's blue with a green under it. And just all of these teeny details. That's how he was wired. And I think he passed that on to me. I don't think I'd be seeing the world in the same way if I had somebody else as a dad. So I was lucky.
I love that.
I'm going to level the playing field and ask both of them this question.
Okay.
This is the stumper.
Oh.
If you were a nail polish color, what would it be? And what's the cheeky little name of that nail polish?
Stephen?
I think if I were a nail polish color, it would be this color, this shade of green, which I see is also a favorite color of Lynn's. and the color would be called, let me think, Streets of Dublin. I think I would call it.
Oh, nice. I was thinking Luck of the Irish.
Luck of the Irish, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. Well, since I don't really wear nail polish, so it's hard, but you know what I would say? Transparent. There you go. I think transparent because it's sparkly and it's, you don't feel too dressed up. It just sort of hides a multitude of sins in it. And if I were going to call it something, I would call it Ms. Cellophane. You can see right through it to the heart of things.
Yep.
I cannot thank you, both of you, enough for coming on. You hold a very special place in my life and in my heart. And I appreciate you taking the hour and talking to us. I really do.
What a wonderful show. I mean, this
is
great that you put this together. You're both so good at it. My God.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you're both extraordinary artists, but extraordinary people too. And I think you see the big picture of things, which I think is the goal for all of us. And it's been just a pleasure spending this chunk of the morning with you both. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Love you both.
Excellent.
Love you both.
Right.
You're wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
This is what struck a chord with us.
Oh my God.
Look at us. We both just went,
I think I'm going to cry right now. I mean it when I say they're very important in my life. There are a couple of musicals that just gave me courage. And they're definitely one of those writing teams that just touched a part of me and gave me the courage to show who I am, which I think is hard for me sometimes. At least it was when I was younger. It was much harder. I'm getting better at it.
I also think so you had admired them so much before you reached the professional scene. And when you have that deep respect and admiration for creatives, and then they sit in a room with you and say, you recognize my genius. And now I'm saying, I recognize your genius. So that's a huge thing. That's a recognition that I think many artists are wanting. not just to be chosen, but to be recognized, and to be recognized by people they so deeply respect. And that happened for you with Ragtime. And that's no small feat. That's a lifetime memory and validation that will stay with you for forever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're wonderful people. And it is true that somehow through all the things that they've done, they have every right to be arrogant, and they are absolutely the opposite of arrogance. They're so generous and so kind and so willing to give credit. They're everything that art should be. Those two,
I
to
agree.
me.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And, it makes sense when Lynn was speaking about the jingles, because you do have to be very to the point. You either have 15 or 30 seconds to sell this product with language that's going to stick in a consumer's head. So it's kind of all about being concise. And then she mentioned that she had brothers. And that house, right? You only have a quick breath to drop in and have your voice be heard. And you better get to the point, or else no one's listening to you.
Well, it's really true. When I was a kid, because I had two brothers, right? Two older brothers, I had a stutter because I could never gather my thoughts quickly enough to get my sentence out between my two boisterous brothers running around it. And so I would, and so my mother would make everybody in the house, as soon as I opened my mouth, she'd be like, everybody stop talking. And the whole house would stop talking so that I could form my sentence. And eventually I did get past it, but it was only because my mom was like, you guys have to stop talking as soon as she's trying to express herself, or she's never going to get her words together.
What a thing. And what a great mama to recognize that and be like, hold, everybody, hold.
Yeah. I was very grateful for them for actually doing it.
We spoke about Terrence McNally, and I loved what they said about him and who he was as a man and an artist, which again, with them, those two go hand in hand. It's almost more important to be the good human and then produce great art. But I also wanted to get in there, which I didn't, to speak to Graciela Danielle, because you worked her on Ragtime.
Yes.
She came into our creative team when we were doing Pirate Queen, when we were moving it from Chicago to Broadway. And again, what a little package of a person, but the way she works with artists, the space that she's able to not
command. She commands. She walks into a space, commands that space. And she's teeny tiny, but she's brilliant. And she's not mean or forceful or anything. She walks in and you feel her in that space, and you just shut up and listen because she's amazing.
And the Tonys are recognizing her. I want to say this year, but it's so backward. We're going back to 2020, but the committee is recognizing her for the lifetime achievement in the theater. And I am so glad they're taking that into account, because she's masterful and she's had a huge impact on theater.
I wonder if we can get her to come on and chat with us.
Wouldn't that be a great chat?
Let's call her.
I will.
I would love it. She's wonderful. All right. I love you.
So if this episode resonated with you, please follow, subscribe, and share.
You can always find us at stagespodcast.net. A big thank you goes out to our assistant and doer of all things technical, Saren Cho. Thank you to Noah Kaiserman and Garrett Healy for our beautiful original music, Melanie Von Trapp for our Stages Podcast logo, Brock Grenfeld, our sound engineer, and Allison Ahrens, our PR and social media expert.
And thank you, our cast members, for joining us today. We hope you come back next week.